everyone, this is Cheryl from the Sewing Basket in Plymouth, Wisconsin. So today we're going to be talking about a different method of self-mitering blankets, bringing that fabric from the back. So last week I used this little panel and we showed you the method working with two cotton fabrics, or a cotton and a flannel, which meant that you had to sew your seams to the inside and then turn it through a hole. This week, let's set this to the side. This week we're going to be dealing with the Cuddle fabric. The nice thing about Cuddle is it does not fray, so you don't need to sew those seams and flip them to the inside. You can leave your raw edges right on the top of your blanket and then just top stitch over them. So the little pattern that we're going to be posting for you later this afternoon or this evening, it's giving you two sizes, so you have the little lovey size for little ones just to kind of carry around with them, or you have this little bit bigger blanket size. So I'm just going to walk you through the steps of how to construct these. So what you're going to need is a piece of the Cuddle fabric, and we carry Cuddle rolls that are 30 by 36 inch rolls. And then you're also going to need a fabric that's going to be the top of your little blanket. So this is a piece of gauze fabric. And this gauze is from the same line that my little, what was he, a squirrel? Yep, this little squirrel panel. This gauze fabric is from the same line as these little guys from Moda. And so you're going to need just the two pieces of fabric for the blanket. Again, for the big one, you need one of the 30 by 36 rolls for your Cuddle, and then you're going to need 3/4 of a yard of fabric. And it can be the gauze, it can be flannel, it can be cotton, it doesn't really matter. If you use the gauze, you want to have it stay 2 layers. So we leave it the way it comes off the bolt folded. And I don't know if you can see, but I just did some little stitching on there to hold it together. The gauze can get a little slippery. If you're using a cotton or a flannel, you can just use a single layer, but with the gauze you want to leave it doubled up. So with this one, we need to mark our lines on our Cuddle, on the back side of our Cuddle fabric. And again, on your pattern, for the bigger one, I'm going to come and I'm going to mark a 2-inch line all the way around it. And for the little one, it's going to be 1.5 inches. So both of those measurements are right on the pattern. So I have 3 of my sides already marked. I'm going to mark my last one. And for this project, I like to use one of the water erase pens. It shows up real nice on the back of the Cuddle. So again, this is going to be a 2-inch mark. And they want you to do it all the way around. All right. So once I have my 2-inch mark all the way around, now I need to mark my diagonal for sewing those corners. Just like we did last time, we need to put these right sides together and angle off that little corner. So again, I need to, where these two lines intersect, I want to draw, oops, I want to draw my 45-degree line. Want me to pull it closer?
Yeah, I think we're all right.
I want to draw a 45-degree line at that intersection. So with my ruler, I want to find my 45-degree line, and I'm going to lay that line along one of my sides, and then I need to pull the edge of my ruler back so that the edge of my ruler is right at my intersection, and that 45-degree line is going right along the edge of the backing fabric. And then I'm going to mark that. And actually, I'm going to switch over to a different pen. And it is a ballpoint pen, but I like to make this line a different color than my first lines, because this is a line I have to sew on, and sometimes once you fold it and you pin it, you tend to sew on this line. It's not going to come out. So I like to make them different colors. So again, I'm going to repeat that on the other sides. Now, it's nice to work with a square up ruler to do this because you have that 45-degree line going right down the middle. I have 45-degree lines on some of my bigger rulers, but sometimes you can't figure out how to get it to lay where you want. So if I find my 45-degree line here and I'm laying it on here, I'm not going in the right direction. So sometimes you need to flip and twist them and turn them. So I'm not saying that you can't use them. So with this line here, I needed to flip it over so that I have my mark going in the right direction and I still have my straight of my ruler on that point. But all of your big rulers have that 45-degree line on it. You just got to figure out how to twist it and turn it. But if you can use a square up ruler, it just makes it a little bit easier. So I have one more to do. Again, laying that 45 on the edge of my quilt, or the quilt back, and the edge of my ruler right at that intersection. So once I have that done, now I need to go to the machine and I need to sew my corners. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be folding it kind of in half, just like we did last time, and I want to make sure that that diagonal line is lined up together on both sides. And then I'm going to put a pin here, kind of on either side of it. The Cuddle fabric can be a little bit slipperier, so you want to make sure to use some extra pins. So I'm going to pin on either side, and then I'm going to come and I'm going to stitch right along that drawn line. Okay, so I'm just going to pretend that this pin is my stitching just to show you. Okay, so once this is done on all four corners, when I flip this, again, I'm going to have that little mitered corner. Okay, so I would do this on all four corners. I would double check my miter. I would come and trim this off, and then I'm going to flip it. So I'm going to go to a different sample where I already have those corners sewn. So here's one of the little sizes. So I had my lines drawn on the back, and then I drew my diagonal lines and I stitched right on those lines. Okay, and again on the little one, this measurement was 1.5 inches. On the big one, the measurement was 2 inches. So now I'm going to come back and I'm going to trim my little corners off at about 1/4 inch away. And today I had a big scissors. I didn't have to use my kindergarten scissors. Okay, so I got my corners trimmed. And now I can turn it with my Cuddle, the right side of my Cuddle facing out. And it's just going to automatically flip these edges to the middle. So, and I want to double check to make sure that it's going to lay nice and flat. If I find that there's a bubble in one of my corners, I can just go back and sew this seam just a little bit bigger so that it lays a little flatter. So you got some room to play there. So once I got it flipped, now I'm going to take my square, and for this size I needed a 20-inch square for my Cuddle and a 16-inch square for my top. So this was just a cotton piece of fabric. And I'm going to flip it in here, kind of tuck it into those corners. So basically, this piece of fabric is going to lay pretty much right on those lines that you drew. You just smooth it out. And with the little one, you can, sometimes you can sew, but I do like to take a little bit of the spray base. We talked about this last week or the week before. If before I get it all smoothed down, I just do a little bit of spray base in there, it just helps to hold this all together so I don't need quite so many pins. I'm going to get it all smoothed out in there. And then I just need to do some sort of a decorative top stitch around this. So on this one, you can see the orange stitch that we did on there. That was a decorative stitch. So you really don't want to use a straight stitch. You want to find something, again, that's going to stitch on left and right of center. It can be a serpentine stitch, a zigzag, or some fun little decorative stitch. But you just want to find a stitch that when you run it down the edge of that cuddle, it's going to be stitching on both sides of the cuddle. Now, one of the tricks for working with the cuddle, because again, it is a little bit slipperier, is you want to work with the flower head pins. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my pin right at 1/4 inch where I'm going to be sewing, and I want to have it that the heads are facing me so I can pull them out as I sew. And then to keep it from shifting as I pull my pins out, I'm going to take a second row of pins and I'm going to put a pin kind of in between where my first two are, about 1/2 inch away. So now I'm going to do a second row of pins, kind of covering that space in between.
And as soon as she gets that second pin in, or third, she's going to hold it up a little closer to the camera.
All right. Okay. So you can see I put my first rows of pins right down my edge, and then my second row of pins. Okay?
Yep.
All right. So now, as I'm sewing, if I start here, I can pull these pins out. Whoops, don't pull the head off your pin. I can pull my pin out and keep sewing and pull my pin out, and this second row of pin is still going to keep it nice and stable. So as I'm stitching and pulling, this is still securing it. Okay. And that's pretty much all you have to do. You can add some extra quilting into the middle if you want to. You don't have to. On the bigger one you might. On the bigger one here, again, this was working with gauze. So we had started by stitching a little grid, but so the grid lines are only stitched on the gauze before we put it together with the cuddle. I'm going to flip it over because here you can see that we did an extra little square in the middle after it was put together, just to help hold that together so it didn't pop apart when the kids were playing with it. It's not required, but it's kind of nice on the bigger ones. You can also see how we did our little serpentine stitch, and the cuddle gives a nice little loft to those stitches on the back side.